Every city in the country, every city in the world probably, has a pizza place. It's usually pretty good, it's usually pretty cheap, but there's something about making your own at home that just really drives the point home. Do you know anyone that doesn't like pizza? I don't want to know that person. Honestly, making pizza only takes a few simple ingredients. What you're going to need is a little bit of warm water. It's going to activate a good amount of dried yeast, a bit of sugar that's going to act as food for the yeast, salt for flavor, flour for the base of the dough. Extra virgin olive oil that's going to, one, make your dough a little bit easier to work with, and it's also going to add just a little hint of flavor. All right, so first things first, we have to bloom our yeast. So in warm water, and by warm I just mean like when you put your finger in, it shouldn't feel like anything. It's not cold or hot. So you're going to give it a stir, make sure everything's well hydrated, and then you're going to see that your yeast is going to start to produce a little bit of bubbles, and it just means that it's kind of alive. If you don't see any change, that means that your yeast might be a little on the old side. Throw that out and start again with some fresh yeast. We're going to add salt to the flour and not to the yeast water mixture. Salt will slow down the production of yeast, so we want to make sure that we're adding that later on once the yeast is already activated. We're going to add extra virgin olive oil. Again, that's going to add a little bit of flavor. We're going to throw in the water and sugar mixture. It's easiest in a bowl because it won't make a huge mess while you bring the dough together. What we're trying to do is just hydrate as much of the flour as we can. Once we're happy that we're not going to have water or flour all over the place, we can toss it onto our board and start kneading it. So kneading is one of those things that people tend to not do enough. Set a timer and do it for 10 minutes. You want to be able to look at it and it's so pokey and smooth and fun. And what you're trying to do is just roll the dough on top of itself and then push forward. You're not trying to tear the dough. You're really just trying to rotate and make sure that you're getting all parts of the dough incorporated. At the end of it, we want a really nice, pretty top. You'll know when you're done kneading the dough when you press the dough and it springs back right away. So now what we want to do is get the really gorgeous top part of the dough. You can just pull the sides of the dough from the outside in so that it makes a nice ball on the other side. Once you turn it over, push your pinkies in and kind of rotate the dough and do a really beautiful round ball. All right, cool. So ready to rise. And we're going to go into a big bowl, put a little bit of oil in there so that the dough doesn't stick. And then you're going to cover the dough itself in oil as well. This is going to rise significantly and we don't want to stick to the cling film. So I like to cover with cling so that it's much easier to get off. I've done a lot of doughs where you cover with a towel and then it gets stuck to the towel. So I prefer cling. So you can let this rise for an hour if you don't have a ton of time. Even better would be to let this rise overnight. So the one on the left is one that's been risen for 24 hours and the one on the right has been rising for an hour. It's still going to be a great flavor. It's still going to be a great texture. So the longer you let this process go, just the more flavor and the more complexity is going to be in your dough. And what we're going to do now is just bring this dough back to life. So a lot of work has happened with all this yeast and it's been a little bit uneven in the way that it's grown. And that's just a totally normal process. So we're going to turn it out and we're going to knead it again for another minute or two. Nothing different about this process. Again, we're just evening out the bubbles that are inside the dough. We're going to do that shaping thing again. So use your pinkies, if you will, to kind of push to make it into a cute ball. And if you're using store-bought pizza dough, you want to do this as well. So knead it for a minute or two and leave it out at room temperature while you're doing all of your other pizza prep. And then we're going to cut it. So as you can see, now that we've cut into this, you can look at that cool I just love that. It's so cool. Okay, sorry. Back to what we're talking about. So you can see just how much gluten development, just how much fermentation and growth and all the yeastiness, sciencey stuff is going on, how alive our dough is. That's an awesome process to see. So this is a huge amount of dough. It should make about 4 good-sized pizzas. You can give one to each person at your party, each person in your family. You can shape them. You can freeze half of them or freeze 3 of them so you have some for later. It's really up to you. Add a little bit more flour, cover it with a towel, and let it rise for 1 more hour. One thing that you want to recreate from a pizzeria in your own home kitchen is getting your oven as hot as it possibly can. One thing that's going to help that is having something in